I just feel like I grew up. I grew up and was like, I'm not going to be ashamed anymore. I'm not going to be humiliated into silence. I'm not going to be afraid of our audience, and I'm not going to be afraid of fake Tegan.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tegan and Sara!
Tegan and Sara were known as being very accessible.
I messaged Tegan and we got a response. It was very exciting.
Tegan added me as a friend on Facebook.
I had become friends with Tegan, and it had become a long-term friendship. At some point, she sent me a shared drive and a password. It felt off. So I reached out to her management and got a text that said, she has no idea who you are. And I said, well, then Tegan has a big problem.
So what's so interesting about this movie to me is you guys are talking about a situation that's been ongoing for 16 years, but it seems like it's really speaking to this moment. Can you tell us a little bit about what Fanatical has to say about the moment we're living in now?
I think that obviously Fanatical does an excellent job of shining a light on the parasocial relationship that sometimes happens in music between fans and bands, but also just the toxicity that exists on the internet and because of social media. And what's interesting about Fanatical is it's sort of nostalgic because it talks about a period of time where that just wasn't as commonplace. These days, that's so normal. It's been normalized. If you're an artist or a public figure coming up now, you just accept that you're going to be online, you're going to be on social media, there's going to be negative comments, there's going to be people who say disparaging things about you, there might be people imitating or pretending to be you. We see that all the time, but when this happened to Sara and I for the first time starting in 2008, that was just really unusual. And so it's really amazing to put out a movie when the cultural consciousness about this is so understood, because we're not having to do that much work to explain what we went through. But at the time, I mean, we didn't even have the vernacular to explain it. Like we didn't have the word catfishing, so we just would say things like, someone's pretending to be me and they're pretending to be other people I know. And you know, everyone was like, what's going on?
People came forward from all over the world saying they had been corresponding with Tegan for years.
It escalated to a relationship?
Yeah.
Felt more sexual.
Felt very real. It definitely left a mark on me.
It turned my life upside down.
Erin, you've made a lot of films about true crime, which I would say this definitely fits into that. We're talking about fraud and all these kind of more slippery concepts of crime. But in this one, there's not like a conviction. So how did you guys collectively decide the movie's done?
I kind of wanted to keep going forever. And because, you know, we were tracking this person, we're not going to give any spoilers away, but it's an investigation into who this fake Tegan is. But it turned out there were like so many different avenues and so many different suspects. And so at a certain point, without talking about the ending, there came like a big realization about the nature of fandom and about the very few bad fans that existed inside this subculture and what it has to say about bad fandom in these industries. So I think it was like sort of a collective decision, but everyone was like, Erin, stop. And Tegan was on, it's not Tegan was on my side. Tegan was on my side, and everyone's like, you gotta.
I think the two of us would have continued to investigate forever and never let it go, but some voices of reason stepped in. I think also our final period of time in production was with an investigator who gave us a pretty clear portrait of one of the people who we were fairly certain was fake Tegan, and that portrait didn't make any of us feel comfortable outing them, I think would be how we would say it. And I think, you know, we were 18 months into the story at that point. I was 15 years into it, and it was just like, I think it has to stop. It has to end at some point. It has to stop at some point. So, but Erin and I would be out there with our detective outfits if we were allowed. I was absolutely bowled over by the interviews with two of the, you know, a sort of more, I guess, classic victim conversation that really, took a different direction where, you know, it was obvious that they had a really hard time seeing Tegan as a victim in this and also uncrossing her from the person who, you know, was pretending to be Tegan. And then another interview with somebody who, you know, had also been nefarious in this, experience, and really, I thought quite candidly and honestly just expressed complete confusion that Tegan would have felt anything, that Tegan is essentially insulated and protected from this type of thing because of what? Money, power, you know, whatever. And I think the sort of the impact on me when I watch that is that to me is like a thread throughout our culture right now. Like the idea of if you are in the comment section below, an image, the person who you are commenting on is somehow not going to be vulnerable to your comment or your opinion in the same way as if you were like screaming at them face to face on the street or something. And I think we've lost our humanity to some degree because we are sort of so dislocated from the actual face to face communication that for all of time we have had the luxury of having. And I know that that's been one of the biggest challenges as a public figure and just as a human being, like having lived before the internet and now after the internet. It's the thing I dislike the most, is just this sort of this lack of decorum, this lack of compassion and empathy that people have for each other now.
It feels to me almost like a drug or addiction, because you think about the hours and days and weeks and months and years that this person dedicated to this. Are you not living your own life? Like, it's shocking.
We need a certain level of obsession and projection and imagination and celebrity culture to drive art to a place where it becomes successful and people connect to it. So I think this is the price, I think, for a lot of us. We just have to accept all of that. But I think as we go back to social media and as we go back to like constructing our public persona and how we connect with our audience, we're never not thinking about where the line is and what we're comfortable with. And I do think it is our superpower that we're able to make people feel at ease and very comfortable and to feel connected to us. I think we're able to curate an image of ourselves and give enough of ourselves to people, especially live, that they walk away feeling like they do know us. I think our job is to make ourselves as approachable and connectable as possible so that you want to come and see us live and buy our music, but to leave as many details out as possible so that you use our music as the soundtrack for your life. You're supposed to be taking it and adopting it for your existence. It's supposed to be attaching to your experiences. So it's a balance, It's so strange because I've always struggled with feeling almost entirely the opposite and almost resentful of the fact that that we believe as artists that it's our job to make people like us and know us. I just don't think I just don't think that's the truth. That's never been what I'm interested in when it comes to art and music, and I think that's the thing that we're all contending with right now, is that in order to be good capitalists and sell ourselves to people, we have to be likable and we have to be revealed all the time, and then we have to reinvent ourselves and find some new trauma to tell everybody about so we seem interesting again. I just saw this interview this morning with Bon Iver, and he's talking about being on stage in front of like 8,000 people and becoming so overwhelmed that he starts sobbing on stage and that the audience just erupts in this huge cheer. And on some level, they're cheering for him and giving him support, and on the other hand, he's like having this meltdown thinking to himself like, this is wrong. Like I shouldn't be melting down and being having people cheer for me. I'm not cut out for this. And I thought like, God, I really feel that. Like there are very few of us in this life that will have an opportunity like the one that Tegan and I have had to stand on stage and connect with people and help build a community. But maybe the only thing that we're extra at or good at is being able to somehow cope or like disconnect from how completely unusual it is and how weird it is.
At the beginning, we thought it was just a leak of a demo, and then we realized this hacker had access to Tegan and Sara's personal information, and
this whole new, really scary universe opened up.
Fake Tegan knew where we all lived. Email addresses had been hacked. They shared passport scans and knew their mom's medical history.
It introduced the idea that it's someone we know coming after our friends, me and my girlfriend. That just made me question everyone around me. It was terrifying and scary. I was paranoid. That's why I told this story. Because I just feel like I grew up and was like, I'm not gonna be ashamed anymore. I'm not gonna be humiliated into silence. I'm not gonna be afraid of our audience, and I'm not going to be afraid of fake Tegan. I'm going to say what happened to me because it's happening still, because it happens to other artists all the time, because all of these victims have been carrying it. And when I started to excavate the story for myself, I was like, oh my God, like all this time I thought that we were protecting ourselves and we were protecting the fans, and really I just was afraid. I was just humiliated. And I know that now because I've sat in a theater with my friends and family and had to watch the film, and I feel it. I'm humiliated that this happened to me. And I have to work through that. I have to work through the fact that these like yucky, icky, dark corners of our fan base say gross things about us. I have to I have to own that, like, my family and friends carry that shame sometimes too. That friends of mine have been like, oh, I can't talk about knowing you guys, or people like say rude things, like, you know, and it's just like, I want to own that. We're too old now to be pretending that we're nice all the time. We're not that nice.